The Albert Kahn Museum is home to an extensive collection of early 20th century cinema, black and white, and color photography. There are over 100 hours of film stock, 4,000 black and white stills, and most impressively, 72,000 color images taken in the earliest form of true color photography, the autochrome. Located in the outskirts of Paris, the museum houses the extensive collection for public viewing. The autochrome is the first true color photographic process. Introduced and patented about 1909, the autochrome process was developed by the brothers Auguste and Louis Lumiere. The process relied on dyed potato starch in three color variants: green, blue-violet, red-orange. This is analogous to the yellow, cyan, and magenta colors of the modern inkjet printer. With up to 4 million particles per square inch, the autochrome surpasses the 1.4 million dots per inch for current 1200 by 1200 DPI printers. The results were spectacular for the time and remain artful and engaging to this day. The colors could be bright and true life, but the autochrome was expensive. Autochrome plates were sold in boxes of 4 plates and cost more than comparably sized black and white plates sold in boxes of 10. It was a slow process. The approximate ISO for the autochrome was about 10 versus the typical ISO of 100 to 400 of film stock used today. The lenses of the day were f6.8 versus f2.0 for an inexpensive 50mm standard small format lens today. The camera also required the use of a yellow-orange filter due to the high UV sensitivity of the autochrome plate. A good shot was challenging. People would need to maintain pose for long periods. Exposure times in bright outdoors could be 8 to 10 seconds. Indoor ambient light conditions could require up to 2 minutes. Urban photography often included ghostly blurs as people passed within the frame. Albert Kahn was a pacifist, an internationalist, and philanthropist. He lived from 1860 to 1940 and witnessed major and minor conflicts, the fall of empires, and the creation of new countries in his lifetime. To name a few, the Franco-Prussian War of 1871, the Spanish-American War of 1898, the Russian-Japan War of 1904 to 1905, World War I, 1914 to 1918, dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, 1908 to 1922, the Russian Revolution of 1917, Balkan conflicts before and after World War I, and the occupation of Paris by Germany as Albert Kahn lay on his deathbed. And of course, there was also the Great Depression. Albert Kahn is first-hand witness to the turmoil of his time as a displaced person following the Franco-Prussian War of 1871. Living in the Alsace region of France that was ceded to Germany after the conflict, Albert Kahn moved to Paris in the 1870s as an apprentice banker. He would then amass a fortune investing adroitly in emerging markets, initially in the gold and diamond mines of South Africa. He would develop contacts around the world in his quest to seek high rates of return for riskier investments. Albert Kahn did not spend his fortune extravagantly or hoard it. Instead, he used his immense wealth to expand his philosophy of learning and understanding other cultures to promote peace and world harmony. The BBC documentary released in 2008, The Wonderful World of Albert Kahn, chronicles the travels of experienced photographers to Africa, Asia, the Balkans, and the Middle East. Clips are available on YouTube. But there were many more assignments provided to students to travel the world, expand their field of study, and return with a broader life perspective. These assignments were coordinated with the Sorbonne, University of Paris, with Albert Kahn as an anonymous benefactor. Students represented both physical and social sciences. They were trained in the use of camera, provisioned with photographic supplies, and provided a travel itinerary with all expenses paid by Albert Kahn. The teams were given directions to archive the film stock. name, date, location, subject. The mission was to film the everyday. Albert Kahn was aware modernity, the combination of industrialization, evolving borders, and displacement of people would change people's daily lives. Native dress and contemporary rural scenes were favored before they would vanish. He wanted to preserve ethnic heritage. Beginning in 1970, the world returned to the archive with interest. Over the next 40 years, images were archived digitally, both stills and cinematography. The worldwide map of the images demonstrate the extent of the archive effort. The map is interactive, and each image includes the archive reference. The heavy concentration surrounding Paris is misleading for a few reasons. World War I was fought primarily on French soil, often a few miles from Paris. There was a parallel program to photograph Paris at the turn of the century to preserve images of contemporary life with the new film technology with which Albert Kahn would collaborate. Albert Kahn would often assign students to photograph and film around the Arc de Triomphe along the Champs-Élysées. Prior to 1914, horse-drawn carriages would give way to cars. After 1914, women could be seen in black, mourning their dead soldiers. After 1920, the images would include baby carriages, the post-World War I baby boom. Many of the locations align with the French and English colonies. This is political only to the extent safe passage could be arranged through Albert Kahn's extensive network of political contacts. Many surviving images were taken by amateur students who had little knowledge beyond their native countries, primarily France, the UK, Canada, and the US. Safety was a concern as teams passed through areas of conflict. An extreme assignment was to Mongolia, requiring travel through post-imperial China and post-revolutionary Russia. The true value of the archive is not only the autochrome photography, but the film stock that accompanies the pictures. In black and white, the film stock gives life to the images when viewed simultaneously. I'm reminded of Alex Farnham's use of cinematographer along with his photography, and Alex's huge love for the present day and the importance of capturing it. So the larger question is, what are the archives of the planet? It is not food photography. It was never meant to be commercial photography. Few images were published at the time, although some did make it into National Geographic issues prior to 1930. Presentation of assignments were shared only with an elite circle of academics and like-minded industrialists, pacifists, and influential politicians. Surviving essays written by academics of their assignments were published without images, nor is the archive photojournalism as we define it today, news material that employs images to tell a news story. Lifestyle photography. Since there was no commercial association with the archive, it would not really fall into this category. The archive does fulfill the goal of telling a story about people and people's lives, albeit over a 20-year period of time and a near global scope of storytelling. Paul Ahmad, who appears in the BBC production, spends a full book, Counter Archive, attempting to classify the archive in modern terms. The tentative and unfinished nature of the Archives de la Planète reflects its status as a transitional project that looked back to the 18th and 19th centuries while embarking on a discovery of the 20th. And so it is an unfinished project by our standards, but a triumph in its own right as an archive of life and history minus a textual reference. Applying modern definitions is rather harsh. To a data analyst, there is no bad data, just data that has not been contextualized. From this archive, Ken Burns can spin a dozen stories. That's the value. Call it historic cinema. Read the news. Similar conflicts rage 100 years later in the Balkans and Middle East. We have yet to learn how to resolve differences without conflict, displacement of people, or outright genocide, everything Albert Kahn hoped to prevent. A personal friend and former naval officer is interviewing refugees in Syria to document their experiences of war as I make this presentation. In these references, I've included original photography and then enhanced digital artificial intelligent enhanced photo.